can go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our session today, budgeting food dollars. My name is Judy Kaplan. I'm just introducing our speaker. Our speaker is Heather Barnes, and Heather has been with the Greater Cleveland Food Bank since 2017 and has been promoting nutrition with children and seniors. Healthy eating on a budget is one of her passions, and she's developed many tips for providing this information for families. Heather previously worked at CMSD and has experience with dietary restrictions and signed language. At the close of the presentation, there's a link for the handout that inspires the class name. So without further ado, Heather, if you'd like to begin, welcome.
Hi, yes, thank you. That was a great introduction. It's pretty much sums up who I am and what I've been doing. So we'll get started on talking about just practical tips that can help people create a budget and eat healthy on that. And through it, I love debunking the common myths that excuses that I've heard throughout teaching these courses of why people can't necessarily eat healthy because they don't have money. It's kind of different not being able to click on it. Could you go to the next slide?
Okay, hopefully.
See if it's
Here we
there.
no. Did it go?
Mm-mm.
Hold on.
Still the
Hold on
title.
one second. Okay, I'm sharing here. Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay.
And I've done WebEx a million times, so I don't know why I'm not advancing. It should. Okay, hold on one quick second. Oh, I think I know why.
Okay. Well, I can get
Hold on
started.
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was
Go
going to
ahead, and I'll get it
talk
up
while
back
you're
up here
doing it
again.
because
Okay.
it's actually not on that slide. So I'll go ahead and start. So healthy eating on a budget requires first for you to make a budget, to know, sometimes people just say I'm on a budget, meaning that I just don't have a lot of money. And it can be really hard for people when they aren't really sure if they're already in that position where they don't know how they're going to buy groceries the next time. It's hard to create that budget. Um, and so that would be the first thing that I would recommend is to create a budget. Commonly, if we used to live in a society where practically everybody got a full-time job for 40 hours a week for 40 years. You had your set income, and from that, you could determine your budget. And we live in a society now where that's not so much the case. A lot of people work several different jobs. A lot of people might have a job and then they pick up other things like Instacart or Uber, Lyft, all those things, where it's not so much. There's very rarely people with fixed income um, in the younger generations, especially. So if they don't know how to create a budget from what they're getting, one website, and I can't share my screen, but if you write it down, it's real simple to search. If you just look up USDA food costs, they actually have every month they update it based on the current grocery prices, and it'll have a plan. And so you can take there's a low plan, like a low cost if you're shopping at Aldi's. There's the average cost, and then there's a high plan. They also have on there a thrifty plan. And the thrifty plan is if you are doing all of your cooking at home, making everything from ingredients, it obviously is going to be the most cost effective way to eat healthy on a budget and save money. So that's actually what my family did, because my husband and I are both self employed. And then with inflation, we're like, okay, we felt like we kept not going over on our grocery budget. And so we sat down and I just researched that. I was curious, what are other families our size spending? What can I expect to spend in this country at this time? And so, and then it breaks it down in age too. So it has the low, medium, high cost. There's the Thrifty is another one. And then on the side, it'll break it down by male or female as well as age. And it'll show you how much you can expect to spend in a week under those plans or a month. And you can kind of figure out how much you can expect to spend. So fact is that I work at the food bank, and if you yourself or you're sitting down with, a student at Tri-C or somebody that you're trying to work with, and they determine what they can expect to pay for their household in their other bills, if that's not within that, I would recommend them to contact the food bank and see if they are applicable for food stamps. Or we have also pantries all over the Cleveland area. And then one less common known thing that we offer is what are called produce distributions. And so I don't know if Tri-C would be able to do this, but a lot of churches, recreation centers, schools, community centers will once a month host a produce distribution, typically for 2 hours, where the food bank comes and we drop off thousands of pounds of fresh produce. Sometimes there's bakery in that, sometimes there's eggs, but there's typically so many within a region that a family can go to those once a week, and they're not limited to how many they go to in a week, and they give a very good amount of food. So but first create that budget, and then you know what you're working with. Okay, so if we go back to the slideshow, and somebody I saw asked if we could put in the website, so I'm going to do that. I don't know the website, but you would search USDA food plan. So I'm going to put that in there and it will pop up. And like I said, it's great. They update it every single month. So you know it's current with inflation. Okay, so shopping tips we have.
I'll go back one to
okay.
one. Okay, there we go.
Oh, mine's still showing 5, 6, 7.
Very strange.
I have it up on my thing. I can go through it.
Go ahead then. I think it's conflicting for some reason.
Okay, so first thing, after you make that budget, and actually, so we had let our student intern make this, and I have a few more tips before we get to making the list. So I had mentioned, if you look at that budget and you're like, wow, I can't even afford the Thrifty for my family. Well, first things before you make a list is always try to clean out your fridge every week before you go to the thrift store. The first time it's going to take time to clean out your fridge or your pantry or your cabinets. But if you do it regularly, you can get it done real quick. And it's just, while you're doing that, you're kind of taking note of what do you have. So before you go buy anything, what do you have? A great website that I recommend is allrecipes.com, because you can type in the most random ingredients that you don't think would make a meal, and it'll pop up a recipe that contains those. And maybe you're missing 1 or 2 items in that recipe, but you can make a whole meal and maybe just need to shop for one thing rather than everything in one meal. So first you're going to make your budget, you're going to look at what you have, and then if need be, you're going to see what you can get for free. So whether that's at a pantry or a local produce distribution, I think my supervisor's email, I believe, or is at the end of this, and you can simply reach out to him. It's not, because it changes, it fluctuates so much. We don't have them on the food bank website. But you can always reach out and say, hey, could you let me know the produce distributions and they'll probably want your zip code. So whether that's for you or somebody else that you know is in need, you can reach out and find out what produce distributions in the area. However, we always say call ahead before you head out there. It doesn't have to be the day of. It can be a week before, and just say, hey, do you guys still hold the produce distribution at this day and time? Because if food money is an issue, usually gas money is an issue too, and we don't want people coming out to those produce distributions and spending the gas to get there and then it not being there. It's very rare if that it's still in place that it's ever canceled. I've never really had that happen. So look at, write your budget, look at what you have, see what you can get for free, and then you're going to make a list. And by making a list, that actually means making a meal plan. Even if you're a single person um, living by yourself, you want to still create a meal plan for several reasons. And one of those being to make sure that you're getting a variety of food in your diet. Um, then also just that you aren't wasting food. So I think later on the next slide, it talks about buying in bulk, and I'll talk about what that looks like if you don't have a very large household. Um, so buying in bulk, is typically it's always cheaper per ounce, per unit. Now, I'm not talking BJ's and Costco's. I know people love Costco and BJ's, but if you actually, I have always lived, I grew up with a single mom who, we had a very, very tight budget growing up. So I learned at an early age. I have like spreadsheets that I created where I would go spend a day going to some popular stores and writing down things that I normally eat and price per unit. And I rarely actually found that a wholesale club was cost effective. There might be some items. So I'm not saying that it's never a good idea, but I found for the way me and my family eat that Aldi's was still actually cheapest. But buying in bulk, within that, we're talking about like the jar of applesauce versus the individual packages. It's cheaper for you to go to the dollar store and get some packages and then every week buy that bigger jar of applesauce. And you can individually set that out. You can take a couple hours on a Sunday or a couple hours on a Saturday and kind of meal prep um, rather than create buying all those individual packed items. So that's kind of what I mean by buying in bulk is anything that you buy individually packaged, anything that you buy pre-made is always going to cost more than making it yourself, separating yourself. I mean, we would even buy like the little, they could have like animal crackers in the little individual packages. Again, I would get snack bags and it would take me, I would let the kids do it, a big package of the animal crackers and they would just separate them in snack bags when we got home from the grocery store. Kept the kids busy and saved us money. So making that meal plan is going to be really important because if you waste food, you wasted money. Number two was shopping the sales. So when you make that meal plan, sometimes you don't know what's going to be on sale. Very rarely are they mailing out ads for stores anymore. You have to go on the app or the website, and that just is a hassle to me. But I will make a meal plan with a very loose list. So basically, what we teach our kids is to eat all 5 food groups at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I might plan that we're going to have chicken, a grain, and a vegetable. And then when I go to the store, I'm going to look at the meat and I'm going to buy whatever kind of meat is on sale, whether it's a whole chicken or chicken breast or chicken wings. And that's the chicken we're going to have for the week. Then like, especially when you go into Aldi's, I think Giant Eagle too, when you first go in and see the produce, they typically have the sale, they have a section just for what's on sale that week. That's the vegetable we're going to have with the chicken. So just being flexible in what you're planning, what you're willing to eat keeps up the variety and will save you money that way too. It says many stores have weekly specials and same day coupons. Again, what's nice if you've always been like, oh, I don't have time to cut coupons, I'll lose them, I won't remember them. So many stores now are doing apps, and there's actually lots of rebate apps. I actually use a lot of them. So let's see, Giant Eagle I know has an app, and you can literally search the item or you can scan it. Target has always had this. You can scan the items and it'll pop up if there's a sale on that item or on a sale some like a similar brand. And so you can kind of decide there if you can save, some cash just by using the apps. So if there's a store that you typically frequent, you can use their apps. If you're somebody who shops at Aldi's, One of the apps that I use is called Ibotta. I can put it in here. There's another one called Fetch. That Fetch is one where you scan any receipt, and it will send you. You'll get points just for scanning your receipt. And the reason they're doing that is that they can market, oh, who's buying bananas? Oh, look, they're also buying vanilla wafers, so we're going to stick those two together at the store. And you get gift cards based on that. Ibotta's like rebates, and in like you can get stuff from Aldi's. Today I actually was there and bought some strawberries. I went in the Ibotta app, and so I could get 25 cents back on my strawberries if I scanned my receipt. So lots of easy ways. I mean, I do a lot of couponing, but I don't cut a single thing. So there are certain ways you can. Sometimes they have even like an any item. Like if I go to Aldi, sometimes I'll get 25 cents back on one item that I bought, and it can be anything. Okay, number 3 is buy generic. So of course, store brands are going to always save money compared to the more popular brands. And there's debates if they taste the same or if they don't. But you know what? When it comes down to money, it's you can get used to different tastes. So, but yeah, typically they're just as good. So, and I don't know if this says it later in there or not, but when you go to the stores, start paying attention. Eye level is going to be all the more expensive brands. Okay, the generic ones are typically lower, where you have to look down. So if you're just running into the store and you're like, okay, here's the Cheerios. Cheerio brand is going to be right at your eyes. You're going to grab it and you're going to leave. You're not, if you, so take the time to look down, to look up, and to grab the cheaper items. One thing that's really nice too now is, I think Aldi's, I think does it too. Aldi's, Walmart, Giant Eagle, they have the price per unit on the price tag. So instead of looking at the overall cost, unless you only have $20 to spend that day at the store, if you can look at the price per unit, then you'll see which one's the best deal. Number 4 is buy frozen. So frozen fruits, it says, especially fruits and vegetables, are just as good as fresh. Sometimes they're even better. This is a great way to find affordable and out of season produce. So especially if, transportation or time is an issue, if you can't go to the store that often, buying that fresh produce that's on sale and making sure you eat that in the few days to follow, but then buying the frozen stuff and keeping that in your freezer so you don't have to run to the stores often, because the less often we're going into the store, the less often we're going to impulse buy. And so staying stocked at home and trying to go to the store just like once a week is going to also save money and gas money and time and things like that. Okay, number 5, let's see. We talked about buying in bulk a little bit. Again, like I said, the buying in bulk will help save you from having to go in the store as much. So I see buying in bulk too as just staying stocked. So the way I run my home is that I have my meal plan and what we're going to buy, but I know that in a pinch on a regular basis, I want to have rice on hand. I want to have some beans on hand, maybe some pasta, some oatmeal. We definitely buy oatmeal in the big tub rather than the microwave packets. I grew up thinking they only came in those microwave, or the packet where you can also pour hot water on. But we love just buying the plain oatmeal. And I'm just surprised by how so many people are like, oh, I don't like plain oatmeal. And they don't know that, well, you can add your own maple and brown sugar or your own cinnamon. You can make any flavor that you want to make. It's a great way that we don't let our produce go to waste. Whatever fruit needs to be eaten, we'll put it in our oatmeal. So definitely buying all of those and staying stocked so I don't have to go to the store. I always have, like, I have a pantry and it has like one of everything on hand. And I didn't just go to the store and do that all in one sitting. I would add a few items every time I went to the store. Oh, we don't have an extra rice, so let me grab 2 this week instead of just 1. And then that way I don't have to run to the store and I'm not impulse buying. Number 6 is avoid the middle of the store. Again, paying attention that grocery stores are not nonprofit organizations. They are there to get you to spend the money that you weren't planning on spending. And so they put the basic needs all along the outside of the store, so that you have to walk the entire store to get your produce and also your toilet paper. And in between that, on all the end caps, is all the things that look really good that you weren't planning on buying. So again, that's where having a list and sticking to it is really important. I know I'm pretty analytical and I like organize information. That's my personality. And so I know if I need my husband to go to the store for me, that's why I love Aldi's, because there's not all these extra choices. We can get in and get out. I will even write the grocery list in order of how he's going to walk through the store so that it's just real quick and he doesn't have to search. He doesn't have to get distracted. He knows what we need. But if you go the perimeter, you're going to know that's the stuff you basically need. So we've got our produce, and it usually all goes in this order: produce, dairy, fresh meats. We have our breads, and then typically at the end is like soaps, detergents, and toilet paper. Everything else is typically extra stuff. I think somewhere in the middle in some stores, you've got your beans and your grains and things like that. Number 7, do not shop when you are hungry. So not only do you want a meal plan, and again, like I said, this feels like a lot. Okay, I have to make a budget. I have to meal plan. Now I need to plan when I'm going to the grocery store every week, so that I eat before I go. And then I have time to prep my food when I get home. And it sounds like a lot at first, but just, if there's one thing, start with one habit until that becomes a habit, then go to the next one, then go to the next one. But once they become habits, it doesn't take a lot of time at all. So making sure that you eat before you go to the grocery store, that you're full. Because then again, you won't impulse buy and feel like there's usually a big difference. I'm sure you guys can all relate. Okay, number 8 says avoid convenience stores when possible. Foods at convenience stores are always going to be a lot more expensive. My husband works with teenagers and young adults in very food insecure areas. And one of his teens unfortunately had to live on his own at a very early age. And he just told us he's so proud of himself because he's doing all his grocery shopping at Walgreens, but he got a membership card. And I was like, oh dear, that's like $2 to $3 more on everything. So we worked with him on that. But avoid the convenience stores. They don't have the fresh produce or even frozen produce. So they don't have the fruits and the vegetables, really anything healthy either. That's the problem. I noticed you guys, I think maybe you already had the food insecurity class, but if you drive anywhere in like the inner city, that's all that's there is convenience stores. And then, when that plays into a role of the kinds of foods they offer at convenience stores and how that affects kids' brains and how they're paying attention in school because of the malnutrition that they have because of the food that's available. Convenience stores are something that drive me nuts, but that's all available. Okay, number 9, shop in season. So shop in season not just helps your budget, but we are cyclical beings. So we are meant to eat things in certain seasons for our body to go through certain processes of cleansing themselves, of storing certain nutrients based on the way things used to be when we weren't inside all the time. So that also is just going to be a great improvement to your health. I know this is a fun one to do, especially as we're coming into summer, because there's all the tasty things are going to be available. So shop farmers markets if you can. Those farmers, they they're not paying as much to get the produce there, but they don't want to go home with all that produce. And so especially if you find out when a farmer's market is and you go kind of towards the end of the market, maybe it's not guaranteed that they'll have everything, but you're more likely to be able to make some deals as well. Maybe they pick through the produce. And I used to work for a co-op, and we would get produce from lots of different farms, and I remember picking through the peaches, and by the end of the time we had a whole box full of peaches that weren't necessarily appealing or wouldn't have been accepted by most of our customers because it had a bruise here or there, but perfectly good to chop up and use the good parts. And so sometimes we would have people come up and say, hey, can I have that box of peaches? And I think we were allowed to make a deal with them to take them for a cheaper price. So if that's something that you're into, it's a great way. It says farmers markets are a great place to find deals, and many accept SNAP and EBT. And I believe WIC also offers farmer markets coupons, or they used to in the last couple of years. So WIC is, if you don't know what that is, women, infant, and children, and it goes up to age 5. So if you have, female students or anybody that you're working with who might need help with that, as long as she has a child 5 or younger, they would give coupons for the child. If she has an infant, as long as she's like nursing the infant, they would give coupons for her as well. So that's a great option. Number 10 is add vegetarian and meatless options. This is a great way to save money. We've gone through several different diet seasons in our life, but most of the time people think that my husband and I are vegan or vegetarian, and it's really just because that's what we found has been the most cost-effective way to feed our family of 7. And so we learned to switch out a lot of recipes. Pinterest is my best recommendation for recipes. But if you're somebody who eats meat every day, again, I don't think our bodies were meant to do that, because when we lived out in the wild, we would have to go and kill things and, process them and all of that. And that wasn't always available every day. So, in our country, we tend to the average American eats meat every meal, every day. And really, I think that our livers kind of need a break sometimes from that. So it's great for your health. You can start with, again, if that seems overwhelming or unfamiliar territory, a lot of people will start with Meatless Mondays is a common one. I will also tell people to sometimes try going half and half. So if you are doing tacos and you typically do a pound of ground beef, why don't you do half a pound of ground beef and incorporate a can of black beans? And then you can save that pack of ground beef for the next time. Tofu is a really cheap option. It's a soy product. It has no flavor. So you can flavor it whatever way you want. Eggs are another one. Yogurt and peanut butter are great protein sources that cost less than meat, it says as well. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the next topic is inexpensive food options. So it says healthy foods under $1 per serving. Grains, we have oats. Again, this is probably just talking about if you buy them plain and in that bulk option, rather than if you're getting, the oatmeal that's in the package with the dinosaur eggs that melts, because dinosaur eggs are something we find in nature, right? Whole grain pasta even can be cheaper. And this was where it was interesting when I did my little project of finding out where I could find the cheapest food. There's a whole grain pasta I know at Trader Joe's that is even cheaper than Aldi's. So this is where, just kind of taking some time to look at what you're buying in the stores near you or the ones that you're going to go to, and kind of taking note of how much something costs per unit. You can see where you can save some money. Brown rice is a great option. Barley and cornmeal and grits are definitely really cheap. And all of those things store well. So those are things that I typically buy once a month. I know how much our family goes through. And I'll do one large shopping trip, and then I'm not having to run to the store for those things. Vegetables. Okay, so I remember kind of the first aha moment where I realized, people say, well, eating healthy is so expensive. So in my discovery of, is that true or not? If you guys have ever tried kale chips, okay, kale chips are, I think, delicious. You have to learn your oven, because if you're over a minute, they'll burn. If you're under a minute, they're like really chewy and it'll make you gag. But you can get a bunch of kale, like one bunch of kale. Well, back then I could get it for like $1. And a bag of chips that would end up with the same kind of amount of chip was like $4 at the store. So that was my first aha moment that like, wait a minute, no, eating healthy is actually possibly cheaper than eating those prepackaged junk foods that a lot of people live on. Cabbage is a huge cheap option, and super easy to learn how to make your own sauerkraut, which is one of the best things that you can eat. The good bacteria that it offers your gut. It's almost like so many people take probiotics as well, or at least you should be inputting some probiotics into your gut for your immune system. And making homemade sauerkraut is going to have way more variety of good bacteria than taking a probiotic. So if there's one thing you learned this year, one new project you want to take on that's good for your budget and your health, I recommend trying to make your own sauerkraut. Potatoes are a great option. Romaine lettuce, cauliflower, carrot, zucchini, cucumber, and corn. So with that, when we make a meal, when I'm meal planning too, just a meal planning tip, one thing that I like to do is, so you're not eating the same thing all the time, and also doing things that are cheap. So I'll do like rice one night a week. I'll do pasta one night a week. I'll do potatoes one night a week. That way nobody's getting sick of something, but we're still able to stick with those really cheap options. Zucchini, I get in every week with my kids. They absolutely love homemade zucchini bread. It's really easy to make. It's a nice breakfast option. One thing you're not going to find on here or hear me ever promote is cereal, like boxed cereal, because it is super processed and it's super expensive per the nutrition that you're getting. So it's just not something that I ever recommend. You're not going to get very full on it. So that's where I'll talk about making like homemade zucchini bread. And I always make 2 loaves at a time. I can freeze one for the next week. Oatmeal is way more nutritious than any of those box cereals, has the great amount of fiber. Another cheap option to add fiber, if that's something people need, is adding in like chia seed or ground flaxseed. I get both of those at Aldi's. Fruits they have on here is apples, bananas, watermelon, melons, oranges, and grapes. Of course, all of those, I would say like watermelon and grapes, well, watermelon at least, it's going to be more if it's in like season that it's going to be cheaper. Melons are a summertime food that's going to be coming up. We get those a lot at our produce distributions. And then grapes, I know they're often on sale at Aldi's. Cheap proteins are eggs, peanut butter, mixed nuts. Again, when it comes to the nuts can seem pretty expensive, but they're also actually really filling. There's a lot of trail mix options out there, a lot of different flavors. I recommend if you have the wiggle room in your budget to buy like the different things of nuts and make your own trail mix. Just because it's going to have less of the salt, it's going to have less of the sugar and or preservatives and additives they'll add into it. And then it's obviously going to be cheaper if you're making it at home. Beans, it says canned or dried. Dried are always going to be cheapest. They have, if you have an Instant Pot, they'll cook in 35 minutes. If you don't have time, because, dried beans, obviously you've got to soak them, and then it takes several hours to cook them, and you got to monitor that on the stove. So if time's an issue, if you can find a deal on an Instant Pot, if you don't have one, they cook in 35 minutes. And then yogurt and milk. We actually add yogurt into our oatmeal all the time, and I noticed that's helped fill the kids up too. Cooking your oatmeal in milk rather than water is going to add more nutrition, as well as fill you up a little bit more too. Because that's one thing you want to remember when you're eating healthy on a budget, or just eating on a budget, is it's not just about how much stuff you can get within a certain dollar amount. It's about how much nutrition you can get within that dollar amount. The more nutrition that is in a food object, the less you're going to need to eat, the less the less food items you're going to need. You're going to have that sustained blood sugar level with more of the nutrition. And so really, the healthier you eat, I really do believe that you save more money. Certainly eating healthy, if you're going into like a Whole Foods or a Trader Joe's and you're buying all organic items, especially if they're prepackaged or whatever, you can spend a lot of money. But if you do it right, I think it's actually more cost effective than not eating healthy. Not to mention too, just kind of going off the slides a little bit, but if you are somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, missing work is going to be an issue too. And I think that's really what pushed me and my husband at a young age. We looked at the little bit of money that we had and we thought, okay, well, let's. And then I think we were both self employed, and it hit us that if we don't go to work, we're not going to get paid. And so we really can't afford to be sick. So therefore, we're only going to use our money to pay for things that are going to make us well. And that's really what kickstarted us realizing that we have to eat healthy because we're on a budget. So we didn't ever eat out because there's a lot of stuff in foods at restaurants, and it's way more cost effective to make food at home. And then our bodies started to feel really good, and we actually a lot of our some health symptoms went away, and so now we actually don't have any desire to go back to not cooking everything from scratch and trying to save money on food. Reading labels. I kind of mentioned this before. We have a picture with the SpaghettiOs. I think that's actually at Walmart. The other one's just a generic picture, but you would see like that small yogurt says 72 cents, and the big yogurt is $1.62. But if you broke that down per unit, the big yogurt is 5 cents per ounce, and the smaller one is 12 cents per ounce. So things like yogurt, I know some people were like, well, I live by, especially when I work with the seniors, they're like, I am not going to eat that whole tub of yogurt. Well, you can freeze that. You can take some of it home, and you take half out for the week and put half in the freezer. You can split groceries with friends. Like they could pay you for half of that and you can split it for the week. But also when you go back, that's where it goes back to that meal planning. Okay, maybe you don't want to eat yogurt every day for breakfast, but if you look at, but for that yogurt's going to go bad and it lasts better more than 1 week. Okay, I'm going to have yogurt for breakfast one day. I'm going to have it for snack another day. Maybe I'll make a smoothie along with my dinner the next day or something. So there's ways to spread that out. And if you're meal planning, you can make sure you use all of that up. See, the next one, it says reading labels, ingredient lists. A good rule of thumb is to buy foods with 5 ingredients or less. Whole foods have more nutritional value than processed foods and may cost less per serving. So I think I already touched on that. So just make sure you're reading ingredients. Never fall for the natural or any of those labels. I mean, they try to charge for like gluten-free on some of the most ridiculous items that never would have gluten in them. So make sure you're not paying more for something like that, but really looking at the nutrition labels and what's inside of them. I mean, you look at the Doritos, like that's barely even food. So you're eating something and filling up on something that'll fill you up for a little bit, and then you're gonna get hungry and need more food later. Money saving tips. So, oh, okay, I guess I didn't see this above. So look at your fridge, freezer, and pantry before shopping. We talked about that. Reduce food waste. So learning how to store your food properly so it stays fresh the longest. We live in a great day and age where you can Google anything. If you don't know how long you can keep something, then you can just look online. You can be creative. But one of my friends, for kids, they call it meatloaf, even though it's not meatloaf, but it's literally, they'll just take, before they cook anything, if there's like leftovers in the fridge, they'll kind of throw it together and make just a bowl of food that's filling, and maybe it's combining a couple different meals. But that's a good rule of thumb too, to reduce food waste, is don't cook anything until all the leftovers are gone, even if it's not necessarily what you feel like eating, just not to waste. Don't be afraid to use your freezer. The freezer is a great place for leftovers, but also fruits and vegetables that may go bad before you can use them up. There's several, like I mentioned, the produce distributions. They give a lot of that produce out. We're not skimpy on what we hand out, because if it doesn't get passed out, then it's just going to sit there and rot. We have to, once we drop food off at a location, the food bank's not going to come back and pick it up. It is the responsibility of that location to find a home for all of that food. And so we give away a lot, and you can take it home. We don't care what you do with it after that, if you're passing it to a neighbor, but freezing it. There's tons of ways to learn online on how to can items as well. So if you're looking for a new hobby, that's a great one. Storing produce, because again, if food goes bad, then it's wasting money. High humidity, you have a high humidity drawer in your fridge. So produce that wilts like spinach, lettuce, strawberries, raspberries, grapes, herbs, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, and peppers. Also, whether it's within that drawer or like out of the drawer, putting them in, sometimes they sell those produce bags that will keep things fresh. I just use a grocery bag, and it keeps things pretty fresh. Anything like lettuce or spinach, if you wash it and don't use it all, putting in a paper towel to soak up that moisture will keep it fresh longer. But again, that's where the meal planning comes in handy, that if you're going to buy spinach or lettuce, or you get it at a produce distribution, anything that is going to go bad quickly, you need to plan on eating and using first throughout the week. So that is like your spinach and lettuce, your berries. You don't want to wash those until right before you use them, because once they get washed, they start to decay more. The herbs, you can either buy one of these, or figure it out maybe with a container. But if you can I have a container where the herbs it's thin and long, and the herbs will stay standing up, and you just put a little bit of water on the bottom, and that keeps them fresh for a really long time. You have a low humidity drawer. So this is going to be produce that mold. So onions, mushrooms, melons, kiwi, mangoes, or any stone fruits. Again, try like mushrooms. I try not to buy unless it's like a day or two before I'm going to actually use them. Cool, dark, ventilated spaces are so this is maybe not necessarily in your fridge, but if you have like a pantry or in the basement. Potatoes, eggplant, winter squashes, onions, and garlics. My husband's family, they grew up on farms, and so when we visit them, they all have their cold cellars, which are basically dirt floors still underneath the house, and it stays cold there year round, and that's where they keep all of those things. So many of us don't have those homes now, but we can certainly find a colder part in our house that we can store those items. And in the winter, sometimes even in your garage, away, as long as mice and other animals can't get to them. Away from other produce, so like bananas, if they're next to something, they're going to go bad. Pears, stone fruits, and avocados. So you want to keep those things separate, and that's where those like hanging fruit baskets you might see. You'll see those a lot, and that is actually to keep them separated and fresh. We talked about budget and menu plan. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize Eric updated this. My supervisor, I told him about this. So this is the thing I was talking about for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You can see the age and the sex group. So we have a child of 1 year for a low cost. It's about $33.60 a week. There's the moderate cost plan, and then the liberal, I guess they're calling it. So I just went through this, and for everybody in my family, I added up what it would look like and what we could expect to pay a week. And that really motivated me and my husband to stay within that budget and use up the food that we have, because when there's extra money, then that's like our eating out money, or we'll splurge and be able to get a whole bunch of food and host people at our house where normally we might not have the money for that. So this is the end of our slideshow. So these are the resources if you want to take a screenshot or copy some of this down. If you or anybody needs help, that's the phone number to the help center, where they can help see if you're eligible for food stamps. There's our website, and you can ask, I think on the next one, let's see. Okay, that's just the resource. I would say at the end, I think Eric's email is in there. Here's an example of a weekly meal plan. So breakfast, it says oatmeal with frozen berries. Again, keeping it liberal, because that could be that the frozen strawberries were on sale, or the blueberries, and just keeping your options open. Tuesday, vegetable omelet. Do you have a pepper that needs to be used up? You're going to use that, or some broccoli that is going to go bad. You use that. Oatmeal with apple and peanut butter. Thursdays, potato hash with fried egg. Friday oatmeal with frozen blueberries. So kind of changing it up so you don't feel like you're eating the same thing. Also, when you make the meal plan, looking at your schedule to see, okay, what days am I available to cook? You know, maybe you don't have time to make a vegetable omelet every morning, but so you can plan that on your less busy days. Lunch, we have bean and vegetable soup with fruit, whole wheat spaghetti and meatballs. Again, those meatballs, you can make them off of whatever ground meat was on sale. Bean and vegetable burrito, fruit, bean and vegetable soup. So there's a lot of, I hope that gives you guys a good idea of how you can meal plan really doesn't have to be that complicated. Um, and it says tip, repurpose leftover ingredients from one meal to another. I think there is in, I think you can look up, so there's a website I started using when I was first a wife and a mom. It's called moneysavingmom.com. Now, I'm going to tell you, don't get discouraged by her like weekly grocery shopping where they spend like $40 for an entire family, because it's usually not the healthiest, but she has, I think if you go to her website and you search up, I think it's like a week of rice and beans, I want to say. That was really cool to research. Like if we were tight on money, we would do that for a week. I think the first time we did it actually was just a challenge to see if we could do it. But she'll take one meal and repurpose it to the next meal. And, you know, I can't do that every day in and out, but if money was an issue, you know, we'd do it. But they're great recipes to have on hand when if you or anybody you know, that's all they have and you don't have money till next week to go to the grocery store. So she's got some other recipes on there that are great. Oh, thank you. How to live on beans and rice for a week. Okay, so that's the end of our slideshow. Yes, my supervisor, Eric Pierkowitz, his information is on there. So like I said, if you know specifically of somebody that you want to know for produce distribution for, you can send him an email. If you are looking for any other sort of services from us, like you want someone to come in and do a talk anywhere, you can contact him and ask for that. Or if you are part of a community center or a church or your children's school would like to set up a produce distribution, you can do that through Eric as well. We're always happy to partner with new organizations. I am not very good at looking at chat boxes while I do these, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if not, then I think that we are done. Thank you for all of those who contributed in the chat box by putting in the links. That was really helpful. Like I said, I'm really used to doing this in person.
All right. Any questions? Last chance. I know breakfast for dinner was always a treat when my kids were little, and it was so simple.
Mhm.
When you're coming home from work, that's one of those easy things to do. So,
Yeah. Yeah, my mom was really good too about you know, kids are hungry when they come home, they're very hungry. And so she would always just like cut up a cucumber or a pepper for us. And we were so hungry that we were willing to eat it. So she really helped kind of prep our palate for that healthy lifestyle.
all right. Well, if anyone has any questions, Eric's email was on the link. And I think that that'll be sent out also with the slides after we're all done today. Heather, thank you so much for all of your
Thank you.
information and insights. And there's so many resources. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
there is.
spending the time with us today.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.